And we're streaming. I'll call the meeting to order. It's 9 o'clock. Start with the adoption of the agenda. Continuation here, if I get a motion. Councillor Dean.
Seeing no additions or deletions, I move the council adopt the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Councillor. Call the question. All in favor? It's moved, and we'll go to 3.1, 2026 interim operating capital budget, a 5-year capital plan.
Perfect. Thank you, Council. In relation to our previous discussions, we have tried to provide you more detail on some of the items that, particularly in relation to contracted services and professional development, that when you look at the budgets independently, are just really large numbers. As we've mentioned previously, we're transitioning to a new ERP financial software with our more clarified general ledger structure. We are of the opinion that going forward they will become even more transparent. There are things within the contracted services budget that you see in some of these summaries that, in our opinion, could probably be broken out into their own independent lines beyond just contracted services. There are some common themes that you'll see in some of these items, and our hope is that as we continue to implement that system, they will be more clear and more transparent. But we thought it was important that you look at those large numbers with some more context. So our intent here was to provide that context. I think it's also important to note that after the last discussion, we removed approximately $1.3 million in capital projects, particularly in the recreation realm that we were looking at in considerations. And there was also the direction to reallocate our reserve revenue and transition that over a multi-year period that had allowed for approximately $600,000 in additional revenue within the budget. And then there's some other changes as well, but beyond that, I'd like to defer to Mr. Orwa to go down here, and if you have any questions, we're both happy to assist you and answer anything you might have. Mr. Orwa, are you good to go?
Yeah, where did you stop?
I've just highlighted the changes and the explanations. I haven't really went into the details.
Okay. So going through the context that I put out there, the first one, on the contracted services. So I've broken them down by departments, and each and every department had the backups that were so many pages, so I started narrowing them down to high levels to explain where they're coming from. So if you look at the administration itself, we do have a wide range of things happening in there. This is where we have different kinds of services taking place, ranging from shredders to bring somebody in for training on cybersecurity, which is key. Also putting up possibilities of recruitment costs that might happen during the year. We also have, we're going to launch our first annual report and start competing nationally and internationally through GFOA. And I think that is one area that I'm really keen on in 2026. And we also have our new website development that is coming through here with the administration side. Then within this area, also there is also some building repairs for Whitecourt, the office building, which of course we do have about 62,900 there. And then also I know we put a lot of emphasis on staff relations to make sure that the staff are taken care of in terms of anything else, including our get-together that we had in Anselmo. So in the future, we'll continue with the same thing. So there is a budget there for 22,600 as well. And then one other big item flowing through that is the 125,000. That is the for the assessment services. We do have accurate assessment that does our work. You remember Troy was here with us last time. So that's part of the contract. So if you add all those, we do get almost explaining the big ticket items we have on the administration side. But one thing that, the other big key item that is flowing through there that is worth noting is our computer software and licenses. We do have about 393. And of course, this is dedicated computer support for the entire organization. And this is where all our licenses run through. And there are quite a number of them that, unless maybe you want the whole list, but there are quite a number of computer licenses that flows through there. But the total number that we have there is 393. We have about, what I would say, so many softwares that is in place for the entire organization, the computers that we purchase for the entire organization, and many other items flows through there because now it is centralized. So that was a total of 393,000. So that explains most of the ticket items we have in administration area. The second item on outside administration is the ledge services. So the ledge services, the key drivers there actually under ledge services is our strategic planning, various strategic planning. That was one of the major key players in. Apart from that, the rest are just normal items that goes through that particular area. But the major driver, the key we see is 150,000. Now coming down to FCSS, looking at what was coming through the department, again, FCSS contracted services, there was a budget of 25,000. We do have about 5,000 for advertisements in that area required to promote FCSS. And then there was also another 20,000 to support Senior Week program and events, as was explained by the departmental head during the first round. Then coming down to the library. Now the library, you can see, is a budget there of 48,000, and I think that covers about 28,000 of it is for the regional library. I think that is the Yellowhead. That is the one that goes per capita. The other big item there is 20,000 for museum, which is the site maintenance. So those are the key areas driving the contracted services under the library. And then when we come to recreation, parks and facilities, you could see there's a total budget of 74,000 there. And in there, we have various site maintenance. And I think there was a long list given for the site maintenance, different areas. There's one thing that I need to note here is we've not been putting a lot of funding in this particular area. And this is the first time we're going to put more funds in there, because I think talking to the departmental heads since 2019, this area has not been addressed the way it's being addressed in 2026 on the site maintenance side. And then we also have another 10,000 for recreation standard guidelines. And then also some part of community engagements is also flowing through there. Then we also have another 25,000 also for tourism initiatives. And again, another 39,000 for the ambassadors program. And I think the ambassadors program was very successful the last summer. So I think they want to go through the same again in the future. Now moving ahead, on the safety services side, as I mentioned from the first presentation, we've decided to centralize the safety areas. That is just to improve the organizational efficiency. And the total contracted service budget there is about 53,000 for the entire organization. And this covers a lot of things ranging from ergonomic programs, the field hazard assessments, fit testing, fire extinguishers, and many, many others. safety-related requirements. Moving on the fire side, one thing we noted is that fires actually operate outside the regular county hours, and therefore they kind of almost function independently of the county standards maintenance because of what they do on a daily basis, depending on when they're called and when they're required out there. So they have that control on their side. Now, when you look at fire, we have a contracted service budget of 30,000 for fire recognition events and those radio upgrades that they use from time to time. And then moving ahead, so fire is broken into different areas, as you all know, the Anselmo will have their own, the Goose Lake will have their own, the Fort will have their own, and then Blue Ridge will also have their own. So there are various repairs in those particular areas, ranging from what they need, which is HVAC, whether it is lighting, whether it is electrical upgrades, and so many things out there. When you come to disaster management, I think they only put about 10,000 there, and that's just for the county tabletop training that they will undertake. Now moving to the egg side, egg has about 56,000 in this particular area. That covers repairs, beaver trapping was out there, security systems out there, wild boar at large, among other operational needs that they have. And I think looking at that budget, it was a little stable. That is, from year to year, I didn't see major variances out there. And then when coming to the airport, you can see again 151,500. So this is where the allocation will support the range of operational regulatory requirements. So they have their tabletop, emergency exercises goes out there, building upgrades goes in there, some ditch maintenance, runway line painting, crack sealing, as well as various repairs, ongoing maintenance. So looking at that particular area was picking details around what I could see that drives their contracted services. On the infrastructure area, contracted services, you could see also we have a big number there. And I told Jeff that I might force him to speak for the last time in these chambers. So, Jeff, I think on public demand, I would bring you forward to speak for the last time because I want to hear your voice for the last time and walk us through that area because I know you love it. But I do have already captured it in there, but I think I just wanted him to expand more because there are more things out there. I'm only looking at the numbers from their backup.
Good morning, Your Worship, members of council. For the Infrastructure Services Department, our contracted services budget is large, but this is generally because we do hire contractors for many of the work that we do, such as culvert installations, the line paintings, the crack ceilings, and sometimes in the summer we also hire contract graders, contract water trucks, those kind of things. Specifically, looking into the number, you see about half of the $270,000 there is to do with those contracted services I just mentioned for the physical work component. The other half of the 274 are broken down in a few categories, which I'll just quickly touch on. The first category is for our office support / engineering type of services that we need. That includes things like traffic count, appraisals, legal surveys, topographical surveys, any kind of review studies. That makes up about $48,000. A second category is about $40,000 is for our building maintenance and janitorial services, because those money also come out of my department, because building management is under me. And then the last category is we also have some money, around $60,000 that's under vehicle and equipment services. That's contracted for outside services. So that covers the infrastructure side. If any questions?
You good to keep going, Mr. Zhang?
Well, I'll just keep him on the same seat, but in case there are questions there, because I'll just go in the same sequence. So we do have, again, I'm following it with the sewer services. We'll see another total of 138,000 in contracted services. Again, this covers, various plant repairs, again, line maintenance activities essential to system operators. And I think in the last session, some questions came up on transfers, because we were seeing some things happening in the previous years, but there was still zero. The reason there being, we're just still waiting for the capital part of it to be approved, and once the capital is approved, then we'll do some transfers to offset so that we can have those slotted in. Then on the water supply side, again, you can see another 241,000 in contracted services. This covers various repairs, again, engineering assessments, I could see from there, line maintenance activities essential to operations. Again, on the solid waste, again, contracted services covers the same thing, almost welding, repairs of bins, cleanups after burning wood piles, because I think they want to make sure that the environment is taken care of. Is there anything else that? Good to continue? Okay. Now, that is a summary that I have there for contracted services. Then the other question came up on professional development. What is in there? So in my attempt to explain all this, I want to again to dissect them, but I'll be hitting at a very high level because we're dealing with some big numbers here. Now, if you look at the administration side, admin budget, you'll see a total of about 149,000 on professional development. And remember, this covers almost 12 staff, plus the CEO is also in here. And of course, this also includes the legislative services area. So we have the total allocation of about 75,000 that supports almost 11 conferences distributed within these 13 staff members. And there's so many conferences that they will have to attend, with also 13, almost 13 professional memberships. This would be ranging from whether it's CPA membership, whether it's GFOA membership, whether it is, there are quite a number of membership there. I think around it up to about 13 professional membership. And then we also have various courses for all team members. Remember, we have new staff, especially on the asset management side. QGIS is out there. We just want to make sure that we equip our staff so that we try to run away from future contracted services. Because now that we have the QGIS in-house, lots of stuff will be done within. Our maps, those boundaries when requested, we should be able to do them internally. But in the future, we have to make sure that we equip them with the necessary skills that they need so that they can produce what is expected out of them. So that's part of this trainings out there. And of course, even the clerk side, we also have to consider even the front desk in terms of customer service, because they're the people who meet our ratepayers from time to time. Some of us are hidden and we sit back, we don't see them. Because they are on the front line, we'll ensure that they're also properly trained and they're able to interact and give the right information to our taxpayers. I would be willing to send them a very nice training in the future. We call it the chameleon training, whereby whether you like it or not, you always give a smile to a ratepayer and make sure that things are done right. But we have to develop them to make sure that they do it right. So I'm not just looking at the senior staff in this budget. I would like to consider the clerical staff because, they do a lot of heavy lifting that people might not see. And we have to recognize them. And then when we come to some of these memberships, one thing is we also have people with the designations, and these designations require some number of hours to maintain the credits. Otherwise, they'll kick you out. They will not allow me to do anything I'm doing if I don't meet the requirements. And I think that goes along with, so we do have the CPAs, there's one, then the other CPA is on the payroll side, certified payroll side. Number of hours must be met before we continue. I must meet mine, and I think on the CAO side, of course, there are also some areas and he has to meet all those credit hours. So when you combine all these, we are almost putting almost over 250 credit hours jointly to ensure that, they meet those accreditation. Otherwise, they'll be kicked out and they cannot even sign some of these documentations. Now, one other notable one is, if you remember the nuclear conference, originally this one was under economic development, but I think it was now been brought also to under administration. So those are some of the things that are swelling those budgets at a very high level. Now, when moving to legislative services, again, most of it has to do with the council. Some of them goes by the policy. You can't run away from the policy. And of course, the number is there ranging from, conferences, the RMAs and others and many others as listed. And of course, the related mileage. So everything goes through administration, then we'll just left specifically legislative services to handle council matters. On municipal planning, again, you could see another 22,159 in professional development, 15,000 again for various conferences, and then they also have some memberships that have to be paid as well. And then training and education supporting in this area will be training supporting the Director of Community Services, will be supporting the Manager of Planning, and 2 other additional staff with no, at this point there's no credit hour requirements in that area, but I believe in 2027 with the kind of training, we'll also be seeing some additional designations in that area. Just as I said, you could see I'm adding 2 staff there. That means apart from the manager and the director, we also have to develop some of the clerical staff there to make sure that they support the team out there and ensure that things are running smoothly, because they are the future faces of this organization when we hang our boots. And what I'm trying to say here is we've started building it now. They say if you build it, it will come. What will come, I don't have a clue, but I'm sure and I believe something will come. And that's why you see I'm putting a lot of emphasis on the clerical staff apart from the senior team as well. Now, when you come to economic development, again, you see another 14,826 professional development. Now, this includes also conferences, and you can see there's also 2 staff, because those staff members, they also have to make sure that they understand what is going on in the economic development areas. As I said earlier, they are our future in this organization.
So I'm gonna hold you for a second, Mr. Orwa. Councilor McNeil.
Thank you. Through the Reeve, to John. Just wanted to clarify, in economic development, I know you mentioned one of them got transferred out, but for the conference attendance, has this kept the same for the members at large, the same funding for members at large to attend conferences, or has it been increased or decreased?
I think there is allocation there for members of large. If you look at economic development, there are 2 staff members and members at large. So we are making sure that the members at large maintains and attends those conferences also. So from the department, they give me projected possible costs to include. So what you see there includes them as well.
Okay, I was just wondering if you knew if it decreased or increased from last year. So the reason that I ask, of course, is because it was something through the committee and the committee had recommended to council, and then council had approved a certain level, and I forget what the number was, honestly. It was a certain level of training, so in the budget for before. Sorry.
Councillor Dean.
Through the chair to Councillor McNeil and the rest of council, what I recall from the October ECDEP meeting was that the recommendation from administration to the committee was to have 2 members at large attend the EDA conference and 2 members at large attend a different conference. So that was a decrease from the previous years. That was what I'm going by memory. Does that sound right, admin?
I'm just, through the chair, it does sound approximate, I'm pulling it up as we speak just to verify that aspect of it. There were some reductions overall on conferences and that sort of thing, but I don't believe they related to the committee, beyond the ones Councillor Dean has indicated, but we'll verify that right now.
So, no, because we had terms of reference that we brought forward to change, and in the end, everything was defeated and everything went back to as was before, so I don't know. Like for myself, I don't know if we actually changed anything. Councillor McNeil?
Just as a follow-up, if I remember correctly, on the committee, members at large, we have 4 members at large, and they were each encouraged to attend 2 conferences per year. So, and if I remember right, that was where that line item, it was supposed to allocate those 8 conferences for 4 members.
Councillor Dean?
Yeah, and so to clarify, that would have been for 2024, the previous budget cycle. What I think I recall is that the recommendation from administration to the committee was to decrease that to effectively 1. So 2 for EDA and 2 for a different conference, which lined up with some of our other committees. So there's that, I don't want to get into that, but community services, for example, has room for 2 members to attend a conference, and there are more than 2 members at large. So that was what I believe the intent was to streamline so that it matched other committees.
Mr. Ferris?
Just looking at the detailed budget, the way it has for the board, there is an allocation of 1 to the EDA conference, 1 to the Growing to the North, 1 individual to the ministry dinner, 1 to some other economic development conference, and then 4 online training sessions. Grand total of $15,000 in costs and $15,000 in costs for conferences.
Councillor McNeil?
Through the chair then to the rest of council, from, I believe then that seems to be a marked reduction. It's just something that I don't want to have unintentional consequences of, essentially. We had made previous council had made a focus on making sure that our members at large were well-trained in economic development with the financial understanding and being in the strategic plan. I just want to make sure we're not losing sight of that. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Horwath?
Thank you very much, Councillor McNeil. Will make a follow-up as well. Make sure that is that way. Through the chair, back again to council. Moving forward, professional FCSS, of course, again, 1 staff for the conference, and then there's also some membership there, and of course training in that area. That was a lean one. Recreational, again, facilities, there's a total, of course, 24,000. So again, there's some conferences out there for the manager and 3 staff. And then we have, again, another 900 for 2 memberships. And then, again, training for for staff. And again, I think there's also another 5,000 training there allocated to the board, professional development as well. On the safety side, which is now centralized, you can see total professional budget is almost 50,000. Of course, this would include one conference for one staff, and then again one membership. But there is that wide range of training. That's why you see that 47,000, because it's now centralized. There are a number of training in that have been put together. So you can see the training allocation is higher in the previous years. Is higher than in the previous years due to the mandatory requirements across multiple departments. This would include a lot of things, just joint health and safety committee training. There's some defensive driving in there. And many other things that were in different departments is now being centralized in one place. Coming to fire, again, it supports very essential training and certification requirements for staff and volunteers, and fire is very complicated. As I was dissecting it, it's not an easy thing because they have specific training that is required that they have to get, and this includes attendance at annual fire service conferences are there for the fire chiefs. They have to attend those ones. We have some first responder trainings taking place out there, and many others. So these training components ensure that our firefighters maintain the competencies necessary for them to operate. On the disaster emergency side, of course, those are just the ICS courses out there that are also required, and I think they'll be in person. As I said, fire is a little complicated in terms of their courses. Maybe unless CEO, you might want to add anything to the fire training.
I think the one thing that I want you to be aware of is currently within this budget, there is a double budgeting of some of the training within the fire operations. Historically, we have gotten a fire training grant from the province. And Mr. Orwell can correct me, but it's been consistent at least for the last 3 years, potentially longer. Within our budgets, there is approximately between $15,000 and $20,000 of duplication there in the event those grants don't come. The departments would like to continue on that training. The other question, and it will be a discussion once we have our full fire service review, is level of service. We have one department and one department only that can do vehicle extrication. We have one department with a higher level of service when it comes to medical calls. And those all come with costs. They come with their own benefits and issues. And then we also have the issue where, because those are in a single department, that area has a different level of service than the rest of the county. And those are all very important discussions that we need to have that have significant budget implications. And those are things that I hope, administratively, we feel interim wise, the budget is very close to getting an interim adoption. Our hope is between January and April, and as we wait for our assessment values to be confirmed, that once we have that in combination with those other reports, we may be able to clarify those double billings or those double entries within the budget, particularly as it relates to fire, and then also further discuss that service level direction, because that will have implications on this budget, and it's important that you know that now. And it's also important that you know that there is a double entry when it comes to this particular training. And so there is room there to to streamline it. Ensuring that our staff have the level 1 or level 2 training is a significant step for the county and a huge advocate for that. But that said, there is a duplication within the training budget that is worth mentioning. I'm happy to turn it back over to Mr. Orla.
Through the CEO back to council members, we'll continue. Thank you for the clarification. Then coming to the egg services, total professional development budget, you can see over 10,000. It's a lean budget out there. But they also have to go to the conferences, of course the 2 staff out there. They have 1 membership, for 2 memberships, and then the other remaining balance is just for training. They have also very specific, and I didn't realize that they are also very strict with their accreditation and the credit hours that they have to maintain as well. On herbicide application, weed inspection, pesticide applicators certification, and I think they are really on top of that, and we want to continue to give them the funding to make sure that they don't get less than the accreditation hours that they need. So they have some mandatory training components as well. And you can see, for example, pest management certification requires a minimum of 2 credit hours with an annual limit of 10 credits per calendar year. So we are very specifically looking at some of those areas to make sure that they have the funding they need to get those credit hours as well.
Mr. Aurora, just hold you for a second. Councillor Dean.
Through the chair to administration, within the notes on ag services, I don't see anything for any funding for members at large to attend the Provincial Ag Service Board, unless I'm just not reading that correctly. I see there's includes 8,300 for conferences for 2 staff. I'm thinking that 8,300 may include the 3 members at large at the ASB.
Bear with us. If I may, through the chair, those costs are incorporated in there at the attendance at the provincial ASB conference. The overall budget costs, not exclusively just including the ASB costs, is $31,874. In there it does reference in the ASB board costs, attendance to the ASB.
That's within the department details?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Aurora.
Thank you. I was just confirming the same, and it's the same information, yes. Airport services, of course, professional, they also have about 27,000. They also have to attend those 2 conferences for 2 staff. They have 2 memberships and various training and education requirements out there. For infrastructure, again, 4 conferences are out there, and then manager, 2 additional staff as well. 3 memberships, because I think we had 2 engineers and supporting 2 professional engineers. Yeah, that's correct. And the rest is just for training and development, which covers a range of technical and operational courses that the staff needs to operate out there. So I believe the director made sure that his stuff is taken care of. Again, the same from infrastructure, it comes to the sewer area. And you can see again, professional development covers one conference there, 4 memberships, and then training for 3 staff members. And again, the same thing applies for the water supply areas. So you can see in professional development overall, a lot of emphasis is also laid on the technical stuff as well, because they do a lot of stuff out there in terms of what they need to know and what they need to have and the skill level required to do their stuff. Now, I also made just a general comment there on the transfers that was asked there. Once the budget is approved from the capital side, then we'll make sure that we do those transfers. But they have not been done at this because I was waiting for the capital to be approved. Sponsorship. Now, sponsorship is also an area that has come up a number of times, especially on the economic development side. They have about 62,000 on sponsorship. So administration is just seeking council's direction whether this allocation remains aligned with the county's economic development priorities, or they would like to change or add, or it's just a conversation in that area. That's why I brought it, because that is a big ticket item. And I would request the controller if you can bring the economic sponsorship on it's an attachment.
Yeah.
Just for council discussion whether.
And in just to build on what Mr. Orr was said there, the Rib Fest went down to 0 because there were donations within the economic development budget when it was described to us that we thought would be a better place to have it than sponsorship. So it isn't we are no longer funding the Rib Fest. There is some funds allocated elsewhere. We have removed funding for the International Celebration of Economic Development. The thought process, quite honestly, was we weren't really clear what the measurable or the benefit of it was. As nice as it is for many of our professional designations of our team and to get the understanding of those things out there, we didn't think it made much sense for county taxpayer dollars. The big one in there that we wanted to maintain was a sponsorship, at least at one of the nuclear energy conferences. I have noticed that it was big news, the first conference we went to, where all the municipalities that were consideration showed up, and then at the last one it appeared as if we were the only municipality still in the room. And with the fact that we are one of 3 sites that are currently actively being considered, I think having our name there displayed on those sponsorships for the potential of a multi-billion-dollar project is definitely worth the costs. If not for this project, if just to let the industry know that we are one of the 3 best sites for nuclear energy in the province, and that has its own spin-off potential as well.
So hold you, Mr. Ferris. Councillor Dean.
Through the chair to admin and to council, just want to clarify, there was a difference between those 2 conferences that you and I and Patricia attended. The one in March was a conference that was hosted by Sturgeon County, and it had numerous industry players and municipalities there. The one we attended in September was an industry based, much more technical, and so there is a difference. I suspect the conference that's being held in Calgary in March is going to have a lot more municipal representation, and that's where this sponsorship was directed, correct?
Mr. Ferris.
The other item there that is a item of discussion, is it was advised to administration that we as a region are very close to fundraising the purchasing of a new CT scanner. And there was some discussion from some of council about potentially assisting in that, recognizing that there's a significant benefit to our community if we have a CT scanner operating in the Lake Court Hospital. And so that is definitely a new add-on, but we thought it was most appropriate in the economic development under the sponsorship realm rather than another location in the budget. And that is without a doubt the most significant change there of sponsorships. But as Mr. Orwell indicated, we just wanted to make sure that this sponsorship list aligns with where this council continues to want to go. And the other question that we had internally is when you look at sponsorships, what is entailed? When we were having some discussion at the administrative level, some of our team thought sponsorship was simply we write a check to an organization and they deal with it. Some of our staff thought our hands and involvement had to be completely engaged on it. And so when you see the color coding on the edge, this was to help clarify for everyone in the room which ones truly required additional staff time beyond name recognition. And it's important to recognize that though those events, some of them take time and we're happy to put that time and investment in, but we just wanna make sure that that aligns with the expectations of council.
Councillor McNeil?
Through the chair to administration, I have a couple of questions. First a comment, I guess back to council. On the ECDEV Week International Celebration, I think if I remember correctly, the budget line item used to be about $1,000 and we almost never used it. So it was something that going to zero, I think is perfectly reasonable. Under the Small Business Week, I see that one's noted here in red. Generally, what we had been trying to do now is create events through COVID. That kind of also was one of the ones that was underutilized. And basically from the committee, now there's more interest in doing some of that spend. So I would advocate to keep that $2,000 line item. And the other comment that I just noted in regards to sponsorship, I don't see, there used to be a Golden Triangle sponsorship for $15,000. And I'm wondering if that's in a different department or if that fell off the budget.
Just bear with me, my understanding is we haven't changed the Golden Triangle. What I will say is the historical complexity of the economic development budget did indicate that there was a lot of information in multiple locations. And I'll leave it at that, but let me just verify, I'm pretty sure it's still in there. I just have to tell you where.
And through the chair to the CEO, actually, now that I know that, I suppose it's not a full comprehensive list because we also have the sponsorships to Eastlink that we've talked about in the past and stuff like that, so.
Councillor Dean?
Just a comment, there's some of these items, it seems a little bit strange that they're captured under the EDC umbrella. So this is a bit of a catch-all in that respect. Like for example, the CT scanner purchase, I'm not sure why that's an ECDEV item.
If I can speak to that. This is the only budget where there was a sponsorship line.
Sure.
And so I think as we roll out our new software, we will be restructuring that. Our GL list is already 13% lower than it was historically. And we'll relocate that, but we've also started to take some of that. For example, as mentioned, the budget for my attendance at those nuclear conferences has been reallocated to where I can keep track on it, so I know where I'm expected to go as well. I also didn't think it was necessary administratively for me to go to two of them. I think there's value that we have a preference and that, or presence, and then I attend some of them. But I do need to be here to do the day-to-day operations and that sort of thing. And I'm glad I've seen both of them, but we don't need two. And then regional economic. Mr. Orr, have you been able to find it any better than I am for the Golden Triangle?
I'm sure I saw that in the operational side.
At the very least, what I can commit to council is if it is not in there, we will make sure it's in there for the 18th. As we go through the meeting, if you wanna progress, we will verify that and give you an update hopefully within this meeting. I am fairly confident that it is still in there, but I just wanna give you the exact details.
Okay, thank you. So administration continue.
Thank you. So that was the sponsorship. Then I think the next one is the special projects, where we captured special projects, and I think one big one is the NRED. And I just gave some historical stuff out there and what really happens. And if you can bring for me, there's also an attachment that I have there for NRED, just on the funding side, just to clarify on the funding side. As we bring that one, I think, Mr. CEO, it's just something just cropped out of my head. I think that Golden Triangle should be running through, I believe, rec somewhere. I'm just thinking aloud here. So as soon as we finish this one, I think we'll check rec and park. I think that's where Golden Triangle should be running through.
Which makes sense.
We'll just confirm that in a minute. Now, so the NRED, we decided to put that together so that we see the correct funding and how it flows, because it's a project that is running over 3 years. And what that means is we had the 255 out there, I think 796, our portion and their portion. So together, to understand it, we put it together, 510 overall funding. So that means they have spent that much in 2025. So we bring forward what is not spent, which is 360,550, and they're saying they're going to do that much in 2026. And then after that, whatever the balance is per that projection will be the 232. That will be now in 2027. So at the end of 2027, it should be zero if those things are done correctly. And again, they have to give some reports out there. So this is one special project that I wanted to make sure that we bring it forward to council to understand the numbers behind it. And I think, Mr. CEO, if you want to add anything on the NRED.
I think the thing that I would like to add in relation to the NRAD is it was pitched to council prior to this year, is my understanding, that we were investing $100,000 approximately every year. The budget that was approved in December of 2024 front-ended those costs. And so a large portion of our required municipal contribution has been paid for this year, with the idea that the following years it will almost exclusively be the grant dollars. And so while I do recognize that there is some concerns for council of some of the scope, and I do encourage you to, if you have concerns with the scope and the advertising directives, we can amend the grant to change it, as long as the advertising initiative are still advertising initiatives. The NRAD grant is, I don't wanna say it is very difficult when it comes to their grant confirmation of expenditures. When it comes to deviations from the original proposal, they're much more sticklers than in my experience with other grants. Here with the province or at the federal level even. And so it is a mechanism where, is there really a value advertising to the EDA association? We will have staff members all day long that will indicate that yes, it's good for exposure, because if an economic development officer is of the opinion a location doesn't work for them, they might refer it based on those ads. I would say there's probably better locations we could advertise and target industry specific publications and things like that may be better. I've also heard in individual discussions with members of the ECDev committee in the past that the YOLO Nomads programming hadn't necessarily provided as much output or results as they had hoped in the past. So there's definitely room to reevaluate those sections, but overall, the grant wise, our municipal portion has been pre-contributed, and there is some very valuable data that is coming out, and I believe some of you were at the ECDev meeting yesterday where they highlighted some of the information coming out, and particularly around site analysis and making that available to know the developability of all locations in the county, I think is a tremendous asset going forward. But particularly in the marketing campaign, and then the discussion on the grant does specifically mention site selector conferences. Is there a mechanism, because I have heard from some of you that maybe putting so much of our hope in those site selector conferences is maybe not as ideal. There are probably some other avenues we could work at amending that to make it so that council feels more comfortable that those engagement dollars are better measured.
Councillor Dean and Councillor McNeil.
Through the chair to admin, so hearing that, the thing that I kind of think is missing here is a plan going forward. You know, we were given an application form for review and made significant changes to it to incorporate the project that's undergoing right now. But we really don't know what the plan is for the rest. So we're, you know, in 2026, we're looking at $360,000 being spent. And then in 2027, another 232, which is 583,000, and total revenue is 510. So I'm not sure where the extra $70-some thousand comes from, but the bigger question for me is, what are we doing with $232,000? And I haven't seen a plan other than the plan that was originally presented and effectively rejected by both the committee and council. So I think I would like to see something maybe by the end of Q1 that the committee can review and make a recommendation to council.
Mr. Orwa has some context for you.
Just through the CEO to the chair, just for clarification on the chart. So the two, if you look at the chart, the 360 is not what is spent in 2025. So the total expenditure in 2025 is 150 something. So the 366 highlighted at the bottom is the balance out of the 510 that has not been utilized.
Okay.
Then the 360 is carried forward as the beginning revenue in 2026, and they are saying they're going to spend another 129,000. So at the end of 2026, they will be left with a revenue of 232. Then that 232 revenue is carried forward as the beginning revenue in 2027. Then they spend it all. Then at the end of 2027, it comes down to zero.
Okay, the bottom line is that there's a lot of money there that we don't know what we're spending it on.
And Councillor McNeil?
Thank you, through the chair to both council and administration. I think CEO Ferris and Councillor Dean basically touched on some of the same things that I would have. Ultimately, in looking at this, what my recommendation would be is the committee, like Councillor Dean had said, really didn't approve some of the items that were here. I think that they can be adjusted to still meet the criteria of the grant. And my recommendation would be for council to consider sending this to the January Economic Development Committee meeting for discussion, and for the committee to come back to council with a recommendation out of that January meeting for direction on any discussion or reallocation of amending the grant.
Recognizing that, I don't wanna assume this because I know what happens when I assume. Looking at the 2026-27 budget, I think it's clear that engagement advertising is really the priority of those once they have the data. I think when you look at a budget and it says the vast majority of, 51,000 this year was estimated for marketing. And then the costs for site selector tours, quite honestly, that's marketing in my head. Indigenous public council engagement, that's engagement, which is also marketing and engagement. I think what I've heard from council would be that we should be providing you with an engagement and marketing plan for the remaining grant dollars. And tying that to measurable outcomes. So just to build off what I've heard from Councillor McNeil is directing us to prepare a public engagement plan outlining objectives and measurables and indicators, and presenting that to the committee, I think would be the best use to ensure that those dollars are properly spent. The reason I would recommend linking it to the public engagement and advertising is because of the amendments to this grant being overly difficult in my past experience. Linking it to those themes which are clearly within the budget that was presented as NRAD, I do think will make it a much easier likelihood that the grant managers will support those changes rather than opening it up in its entirety.
Councillor McNeil?
Through the chair to CEO Ferris, definitely, as long as I would definitely support that idea. Just I would like to see it certainly go to the committee, because there's gonna be some of these particular items that our industry members at large have more expertise on some of the, like you said, in industry guides, investments and so on for advertising, so I would really appreciate their input.
Through on this topic to CEO Ferris, Councillor Dean had recommended end of the first quarter to have this looked at. I know Councillor McNeil asked for the meeting in January, given that we also have an office shut down for almost 2 weeks coming up between there. Is January a realistic timeline, or is February more realistic?
Through the chair, I think February is probably more realistic. We could get you a high level draft by the end of January, but I don't think it will have the details that the committee or council would want for the accountability aspect. But we can get you something by the end of January. I just don't think it will be as comprehensive as needed.
Councillor McNeil?
Through the chair to administration and council, I actually kind of like the idea of both, and I'm not exactly sure what the direction or RFD would look like to the ECDEV committee, but I think that we have an opportunity at our meeting in January to have a brief discussion for them to provide some direction for that project to be brought forward for the February meeting.
Councillor Dean?
Through the chair to admin and council, if the contractor hits the timelines that were presented to the committee yesterday, that project, the heavy industrial site identification project report, will be available at the end of March. And I think a good understanding of that is necessary before we plan any next steps. I'd like to see that report, see what jumps out, and then that might direct us as to how we want to market.
So administration, wanna continue?
Just if I may, just for accountability purposes, based on that discussion, would it be possible to get a motion directing us to do it? Just while the discussion's fresh.
Yeah, I'd be prepared to make that motion, but I just wanna see if we have consensus that we're gonna wait until the report comes out before we task administration with identifying what the next steps are. Does that make sense?
Oh, sorry.
Councillor Neal?
Through the chair to Councillor Dean, I think that makes actually perfect sense, and as long as we're not spending these dollars in the first quarter before that report comes out, would be my concern.
We will put a stop so that there isn't.
Okay, so I'd move that council direct administration, following the reception of the heavy industrial sites identification report, present to the committee and council a marketing plan.
Thank you. Discussion to the motion? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried on line 2. Okay, Mr. Orwa?
Through the CEO to council, I'll continue. So we are in the special projects, and that was NRED. I think we have identified 2 other projects, that's why we're not listing them on the other side. And the next one is municipal planning. We have the 300,000 allocation for municipal planning contracted service, which reflects costs associated with the area structural plan. And I think this would include supporting engineering and technical analysis, because this involves, the preparation of 3, structure plans for the hamlets. We decided to categorize as part of a special project moving forward. Then the next one is Centre of Alberta Trail Master. There's an application total there of 30,000. And again, this is also another multi-year project. And I think from the information I gather, it might continue for over several years, depending on the scope. So again, that is another special project that is worth mentioning. And probably I'll pass it over again to the CEO if you might want to expand on the Trail Master.
I would, in relation to the Trail Master plan, or Trail Master application, the provincial government has been doing a lot of upgrade work at the center of Alberta site, which is just past Fort Assiniboine. And there is a program that they have where you can apply to take over provincial trails, where they'll assist you with the maintenance costs of that. And so it is definitely a service level discussion. Our recommendation within this budget by including it is that we do take that on. I think it's a really good asset. That I had the misfortune of using the trail before they did the upgrade. It was a really lovely, muddy, boggy 4.5 hour hike. I see the trail now, and it would have been much easier and probably cut down an hour off my trail time if I had done it subsequent to it. I think from an asset point of view, I think taking it on organizationally, when you factor in the tourism initiatives, the tourism potential, but also in the discussions we've had with Barrhead County about looking at a more interlinked tourism discussion and agritourism and that sort of thing within our boundaries, it's close enough there that that's also a good point to recognize, is our opinion. And so we are hopeful. They have indicated that there's a strong likelihood, without guarantee they could, that we get the grant application. The real question really comes in is, if there comes a year where we don't get it, do we still wanna maintain it? It wouldn't be the first time that the provincial government has given us some initial funding and then decided that it was no longer appropriate. And so that is definitely a discussion that may come in the future, and it is a caution. But I do think it's a special project worth utilizing.
Thank you for that. Councillor Dean?
Just a question of clarity, so the 30K, that's trail development?
It's to help maintain the costs of the trail. So they've redeveloped the trail, they put a whole lot of new cedar chips down and rebuilt, they believe, one of the bridges. Like I said, I haven't went through it since they fully updated it. They've also updated the washroom. The washroom is conveniently located at the end of the trail. And so the upkeep and maintenance of that, there's a cost to it, because it's a decent hike. Even north on ATV, it takes you a little bit, and those are all costs that have to be incurred, and that is meant to help us maintain it at the level they've upgraded it to.
Thank you. Mr. Orwa?
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Continuing, I think the fire one, I think the CEO had explained that part. The projects coming, the grants coming through the government, and the training involved that he expanded on. And of course, as you say, this funding, of course, will benefit all the stations, all the 4, county fire stations. Now, moving along, there is also the capital piece that is also in here, and the capital piece is everything that you had seen previously is maintained, but we've just, if you bring for me the capital before the attachment.
This one, John?
Yes, this one here.
Sorry, I hold you there, Mr. Orwa. Councillor St. Martin?
Mr. Reeves, to council, I guess, or to administration. If we have questions about operating, would we ask them before we get into capital?
Sure, it's easier, absolutely.
Okay, I do have some
Councillor St.
questions.
Martin?
I just wanted to confirm, on the recreation, well, that's capital, sorry. Growth RETA funding, is that a discussion we should maybe have here? Cause that would impact the operational budget.
Yeah.
I was going to bring that up for our next council meeting also, I believe, given some of the recent changes to the organization, I don't believe it really has the regional benefit that it's supposed to anymore. And I agree, you should be having a conversation.
Okay, Mr. Chair, through to administration, can we get a dollar amount for that?
Absolutely.
My next question, Mr. Reeve, through to administration is, I guess the impact of the minimum tax. Has that been curtailed in the operating budget?
Chair, yes, we currently have a motion to phase in minimum tax within the budget. Right now, it is set at the $100 increase based on the motion to phase it in. I fully acknowledge there's discussions to discuss that or engage with the public, but we're still dealing with the council motion to phase it in. So it is within the budget as discussed.
Councillor Dean?
If the direction from council after the public engagement is to modify or abandon the minimum tax, then we would make those changes to the operating budget.
Through the chair, yeah, so we can reduce costs accordingly as directed, or it would be a net increase on general taxation. And ultimately, the direction of how we proceed would be up to council.
Mr. Orwa?
through the CEO to the chair, just to add what the CEO said, yes, the adjustments definitely will take place depending on the council's direction, because this is going to be an interim budget to help us operate from January onwards. But remember, we're still waiting for the assessment coming in April. And based on that, that is where we'll have the final operating budget. So as Mr. CEO said, adjustments can be done in between the final budget in April, depending on the feedback we get from the public engagement on this.
Mr. Dean, or Councillor Dean?
Through the chair to council, I feel it's a mistake to incorporate these tax revenues in when we have so many questions about this program. The discussion from yesterday included, was it yesterday, Wednesday? Included a request to find out how many individuals were impacted, whether we were effectively targeting a small group of people to cover this cost. And if we bring the conversation back to June, when this matter was referred to the tax committee, there was considerable discussion on a rebate. And there was no motion made, but the flavor of that discussion was that council was unsure about this tax, and we had considered trying to halt it, but we were told that tax notices had already been mailed out and it would be incredibly difficult to stop that process and reissue new ones. So the question was asked, can we, after we decide what we're doing with this tax, can we offer a rebate? And the answer was yes, and the matter was referred to the tax committee, and the concept of the rebate never came up. And then we had a motion passed to recommend to council to put the $50 tax into the 26 budget. So I just think we're nowhere near a point that we're comfortable with this process, and yet we're taxing the people this year and we're taxing them next year, and I don't support that at all.
And for clarification, CAO Ferris did say that he's running off of past motions. That's the direction that they were given, that they were working on. And there was also a recommendation on Wednesday that I'm assuming will be coming to the council meeting on the 18th. I did recommend, given where we are in the budget time, to continue with the $50, not increase it, until we had a larger discussion with the public on how that would impact or what those numbers look like. So that was a recommendation that came out on Wednesday. I know that's different than the $100, but it's still keeping it stagnant for individuals who were impacted. And I know it'll be, when we look at the numbers, I'm sure it's more than just leaseholders on the minimum, because there's also some other rate holders that it also impacted as well, who also own land. So any other questions on the operational side? Councillor McNeil?
Go ahead.
Councillor Martin?
I had a few more questions.
Okay.
Okay, so the discussions around the collaboration grant for the IDP, is that in the budget anywhere? The IDP and ACP intermunicipal collaboration funding?
It is within there. It is contingent on us receiving the grant to proceed with the project.
I guess my question, Mr. Reed, through to administration, is there a different project that we could look at, or one that can parallel and apply for? And my thoughts kind of went to, for example, the improvements to the recreation sites. That might be something that the town also does, and that we could apply and bring in potentially $100,000 of revenue to the budget, as well as the town would bring $100,000 into theirs.
Through the chair, we can absolutely look look at it. Ultimately, we'd have to have those discussions with the town and getting that confirmation, and I do believe the applications are closed, so it would probably be a 2027 grant submission. But I would have to confirm that, and there's always grant opportunities that we could partner on something like that, and we can absolutely engage the town to see if there's that desire.
Okay, Mr. Chair, just further to that, another idea I thought was the town, the county emergency generator. And the town may be looking at that as well for their new town office, and that might be one that we could collaborate on as well. I have a few more, but if you'd like, Councillor McNeil.
Councilor McNeil, you have a couple and I'll go back over.
That's okay, you can finish up and then I can.
Okay, Mr. Reeves through to administration as well. The small communities operating program, is that the correct opportunities program? I'm not clear what projects we're doing under that, but I'm wondering if there is something included with that maybe we would like to change the scope on. I'm thinking the county signs project would fit under that. But that's further discussion. My next question is, with the newly budgeted positions in the operating budget, do we anticipate a higher, say, after the first quarter of the new year? And if so, did we prorate those positions in the operating budget?
So yes, the two positions that are proposed, within the budget, it does not include a full year salary. It is prorated, recognizing that they probably won't be filled. I can't speak to the exact proration, I'd leave it to Mr. Worrell, but it is prorated.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, I think I asked this before about PERC, Provincial Education Requisition Credit. Have we forecasted a credit in 2026?
Leave that to Mr. Orwell in terms.
I think we do. We do. Based on what we sent in 2025 that we thought we would not get.
Okay. Mr. Chair, through to administration, I understand that the province has transitioned the grant in lieu of provincial properties from 75% to 100%. I can't imagine we have a lot of those properties, but was that factored into the operating budget?
I'd have to rely on Mr. Orwell for that for verification.
No, that one we have to double check on that one.
Mr. Reeve through to administration, I understand that we're implementing a VoIP communication system. Do we anticipate that there will be reduced communication expenses? And if so, was that factored into the operating budget?
Through the chair, that was absolutely factored in, and it was. I believe there was also correspondence where it was a significant savings that we experienced, and unfortunately the local vendor was not successful and they were outside the margin of error of purchasing policy, but there's a significant savings within VoIP and it is in the budget as.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor McNeil?
Okay, thank you. Through the Reeve to both council and administration. What I'm very concerned about with this budget is, and kind of referring to the strategic plan and financial understanding, and I'm gonna say, the good work that the previous councils and administration have done in putting us in a much better financial position than what we were. What I'm not seeing here is, in the operating budget, is a plan for increasing revenue. You know, so what I'm seeing is a plan for increasing tax. But where our only three functions of increasing revenue are grants, economic development, and taxation. So, and I only see one of those three components really in this budget, and that deeply concerns me. And the other thing that I'm seeing in the budget is, well, I guess, and tied to that, with the proposed 5% increase, that brings a 47% tax revenue increase since 2016, which is very substantial. And in looking at that, I think in our budget, I would like to see council approve a budget that gives administration the tools and the path forward to have other mechanisms for increasing our revenue. And I realize some of that is, of course, under the ECDEV budget, and NRED is a component of that is there. But what I'm seeing over last year's budget is, to the point that I discussed at the last meeting, I went into detail about the 4-year history of the committee and council supporting the increase to the economic development department. And it was about wanting to have 2 persons fully focused on economic development 100% of the time. And I think that direction was very clear, and it was a multi-year direction. Also, what I'm seeing is over and over, we've been told that their staff really hasn't had time to identify and apply for a lot of these grants that are available. And we've run into that numerous discussions across departments. You know, when we've asked about grants, there hasn't been time for a focus on that. There hasn't been staff capacity, in my opinion, to follow that direction. So what I would like, and I guess finally on that part of it, also in identifying these and the discussions that we had around orientation and so on, we clearly have been presented that under community services, that they needed some capacity in community services, which was the explanation given to us as to why they were moving the economic development assistant part-time under community services. So to me, that's a separate ask, is obviously community services, then at the CAO and team decide that they do need support. So what I would propose is council to consider, I think we need at least a 50% time grant writer, and I think we need a 50% time community service position. And the grant writer, whether that's somebody that we hire and train and send them, you know, if it's somebody local, I don't think it's something that we want to be dealing with as a consultancy. I think that we want to build this skill within our organization and make sure that the focus going forward is not using only taxation as the tool to increase our revenue.
Just like to say, as somebody who's been on council before, the focus has never been about always having or wanting to increase taxation to meet the inflation and costs that come up. Unfortunately, as a municipal, we can make things as appealing as we can for industry, but we can't determine if industry is coming or the projects that are being built or anything. It's hard to build a budget off of wishes that we don't know if they're gonna come. There are projects on the books that we keep getting told are shovel ready and there's investment coming, like the Moraine or the Vault 44. If they come, great, we can have that increase in assessment, which we'll be able to reduce on the taxation end. But we can't force people to come and develop and do stuff here. We can make it as appealing as we can, but it's hard to budget for projects that you can't guarantee if they're coming at a municipal side. We're not the investors, we're not the people who are actually doing the projects. So if you look like typically from a municipal standpoint, when you're looking at revenue generation, it's through user fees and taxation. And unfortunately, we're not an urban center that has a lot of the urban fees that you can adjust to offset some of your rec sites and your facilities. We have taxation. That is realistically our goal. Mr. Ferris and Councillor McNeil.
I fully acknowledge that. I will say what we may perhaps done a disservice on explaining is this year, council approved a new fees and charges bylaw. That did create new revenue opportunities. To our staff and to the public, we to some degree want to make it clear that we are service-based and we have a basic level of service, but then there's other tasks that have a cost associated with them and making sure they're appropriately played. In 2026, we are also reviewing all of our utility rates. I would say, based on my experience, our utility rates should be towards cost recovery. They're not remotely close at this point. But we are already getting concerns from public that they are too high. What I can say is, based on some preliminary numbers that I've seen, we're low. At our tax rate, when you compare us to all counties and MDs, I fully recognize that it fluctuates based on the total assessment value, that sort of thing. We are literally middle of the pack for residential tax rates. And so it is everyone will say that their taxes could be lower, but unfortunately, certain things have cost. I will also indicate that the feedback I've received from staff is that grants and that sort of thing historically has kind of always been to the side of the desk as an optional, and I do recognize that as an enhancement, and we've even in the last 2 months applied for some more grants that we hadn't historically looked at. I will say that some of the grants we have heard brought forward, our staff have already looked at them and vetted that we don't think it's worth the time submitting because we don't believe we're eligible. For example, like the SCOP, we did look at that in relation to potential signage. There is municipal infrastructure signage there that says are ineligible, but if you put that economic development slant, well, if we want $100,000 sign with the big digital letters on the bottom that's probably covered under ECDev, but then also justifying the sheer cost of that super sign is something we just said administratively we wanted to scale the project to something what we thought was reasonable administratively and excluded it. Similar, there were multiple rural airport grant applications we looked at and we thought we didn't meet the criteria. One area of it, when it was brought up, we did reevaluate whether we met the remote criteria. We didn't necessarily felt that we did, but we still reached out. And so while some of these grants that we've heard are great, and having that extra in-house person is definitely an asset, and I would definitely support that. We've also had some monumental changes in the last 3 or 4 months on grant writing alone. Without saying the name of our past grant writer, this year we were told 2 days before the deadline, I can prioritize one grant for us. That one got in. The other ones that we had been working with our provider with months in advance, we were left scrambling. Luckily through the RMA meetings and stuff we did have another provider that was able to help us get across the finish line on some of them. But that was a disservice to our organization, relying on those contractors who get a percentage based of the grant, and then they're gonna prioritize the one that is the biggest number, and that leaves us. So we are actively incorporating that more into our organization than has historically been. That said, a lot of those projects do come from tax dollars from the province or the federal government anyway, and we wanna be cognizant of that as well. And we could use the support of an extra person for grant and community services. I completely understand that, and I could probably get a rough business case to justify it alone in grant revenue. The issue that I will say from having it in-house though is there's two things. There is a very steep learning curve, building those network of understanding of where to find grants. But not only that, that person then has to, I almost wanna say, develop a director or CAO level understanding of the municipality to make sure that they know what grant will apply to what part of the interaction of the municipality. And what I have seen in some municipalities that put that position forward, for the first 2 or 3 years, they're like, why aren't there more grants? Well, it's because that person is building that understanding and building that network of this links to this. Oh, this grant may apply to our garbage department, but it may apply to rec for whatever reason. And I do wanna temper the expectations that by doing it in-house, all of a sudden you will see multi-million-dollar grant revenue in the following year, because there is an incredible amount of resource building that new position, particularly one created from scratch, will need to build. Similar to economic development, you have that discussion with a builder, and 10 years out is when you see the final product. The grant application process internally has that same risk, and I do just wanna temper expectations if you were to graciously enough give us that position. We could use it, we would utilize it, we have space for them, but that is a concern if you're expecting come next budget year, there's millions of dollars in new grant revenue for us.
Councillor McNeil and Councillor Coogan.
Okay, and just to kind of follow up with that, so I think it's imperative that I illustrate why, you know, when we had talked about economic development, I mean, I've had business experience going back 40 years. I definitely understand that the economic development activities are a long-term game. It's not something that we're putting in now and we're getting revenue from next year, which is one of the reasons, obviously, with the focus. And what we're missing, so, you know, for council to kind of understand, is when I first joined the Economic Development Committee 4 years ago, one of the big things that I was pushing for was a business directory. Because when we're attempting economic development actions, one of the things is we do not know who our businesses are. And when I was campaigning, our businesses are not aware a lot of the time of what supports are available. So one of my primary focuses was how do we identify who our businesses are, so from economic development perspectives, then we can go forward and ensure that when we're approached or when we're advocating on behalf of our municipality, that we at least understand what's here. And that still, 4 years later, has not been completed. Now, when comparables look at the town of Whitecourt, for example, in that same 4-year span, they also identified this as being a real concern in our region. And they have put the time into it. Their EDO literally drove around the town and went to business with an Excel spreadsheet and started filling it out. You know, it was boots on the ground work. And it's just one small example of economic development capacity that we haven't had addressed. And in looking at it, and also why that's so important is, for example, at what kind of highlighted it 4 years ago, we had the Capscura pipeline come through. And when that pipeline came through, a lot of the projects and a lot of the contractors and so on locally weren't big enough to bid on it. So they brought in contractors for a lot of the services from other Edmonton, other areas, etc. And because the job proceeded through here with $200 a day living allowance, approximately, then what they did is scooped a lot of our local workers. And by taking those local workers out of our local businesses, and they then destabilized those businesses. And after a project like that, we lost a number of businesses in this region. So having a proper, robust business directory, when industry approaches our EDO, he can say, you know what, we have this capacity. So maybe we have 200 welders in the region or something like that. So you can at least at that point help to identify those so that the industry that's coming in also can realize that they're saving money. One project we looked at the time was a power plant build, and it was like $1.2 million just in LOA that they would have saved from doing locally. So these are some of the kinds of tools that when we have capacity that we can do that will strengthen the economy in our region. And then on the grant writing side, we used to get millions of dollars in grants. The last two administrations haven't had, I forget exactly the numbers, but even just with the town of Whitecourt, the collaboration there, we had one administration, I think it was $2 million over 4 years just with the town, outside of all the others. So, and I appreciate the CEO's comments on the grants like that, but we've heard in the budget presentations from staff and in the Tax and Finance Committee, cause Councillor St. Martin's very well versed in grants, and when she's asked, you know, there was numerous grants that they weren't aware of or didn't have time to do, which is completely fair, because like you said, if they're doing it off the side of their desk, you know, we have professionals. I'll pick on, you know, Jeff's was a very busy man, and I'm sure it's not our dollars are not best spent having Jeff researching grants, you know. So anyway, hopefully gives some context why it's so passionate about that.
We get you, Mr. Ferris. So just in case there's other clarity, Councillor Kukin and Councillor St. Martin, and Mr. Ferris.
Yeah, I think, you know, from the conversation that I'm listening to here is that one thing that we need to understand is that consistency in having dedicated economic development team working is very important, and it has to be consistent. It cannot be something that we shuffle back and forth, because it is a long game that was identified by CEO Ferris as well. And I think that fundamentally that was the direction that we took 4 years ago when we put that in the top of our strategic plan. The furthering of this discussion, I don't think there's merit of having this discussion on the budget today. I think there's value in understanding that we need to really consistently have a look at economic development and have a team that's dedicated to that and focused to that. And I think that discussion should come up in our strategic plan in January, and I think we should actually put some real meat and potatoes to that, because we have it.
Councillor St. Martin.
Mr. Reeve, through to council and administration. So there's ways to fund this, and that's kind of why I asked about the growth question and where that funding was going. And the business license, or the business registry, typically that's why a license fee is charged, is to generate the revenue to fund some of the administrative tasks. And the benefit of that as well is that administration is able to track those businesses. If there's a change in ownership or new business or business that goes out of business, it's all tracked. But that takes administrative time and cost to the municipality. So I just wanted to add that as some insights.
Mr. Ferris, I know Mr. Orwell had his hand here too.
I'll keep my comments very short, just for clarity purposes. It has been researched within the tactical plans. It was to investigate frustration from committees. I've heard them, is there was a lot of discussions but never any action. What I can say is within the 2026 tactical plan, or business plan, the draft one for economic development, a task in 2026 is to build that directory. I will fully echo that having a business license, whether you charge or whether it's a token fee of $50, legislates people, and when there's a legislation requirement for it, you get a better result. The optional directory we have, I wouldn't trust it, because there's probably 15 businesses that do each service beyond that. And I am a big fan of business licensing, just as a way to know those businesses. And in the past where I've implemented business licensing fees, it's a easy sell if it's a small dollar amount, and make it clear that those dollars are going to be back into the industry by advertising a particular industry each year, or however you would do it. I understand the concern. Within our budget, within economic development, there will be a business directory built this year. And it's incorporated within that budget based on the business plan drafts that we were working with our staff.
And before, Ms. Roy, if we can, again, just after this conversation here, we are working on an operational budget, so I don't believe that shortfalls in committees or groups or understanding that we really fall into this conversation. So I'm gonna go to Mr. Orwa, and after we can try to keep to the budget, please.
So just through the CEO to council, in contribution to the grants that we've been talking about, I've been making quite a number of follow-ups, especially after our finance and taxation committee. And one area that we've been focusing on is on the ACP grants. So municipal affairs have the intern program out there. It's for administration, it's for planning, and also for finance. And they just want to make sure that these are university students who have completed or graduated. They just want to maintain them within government so that they don't run back into the industry. So it needs a lot of, planning and making sure that these interns are taken care of and trained well by local staff. So this year on the side, I think I've applied for ACP for finance intern. So if that goes through, that means it will help corporate services to ease in the pressure. And I think we have a total of 18 months that if we succeed, that intern will be there. So we are taking the grants very seriously on the side, even if we don't have time. So in the future, probably, we'll see whether to get one for planning area, also for administration area, because the government actually gives us enough money to maintain them within the county.
Mr. Ferris, just to get on the question, have we discovered or found out what our input costs are for growth yet?
No, I have not. Sorry, the discussion took me away, but I will.
Councillor Neal?
So to wrap up the conversation, of course, and the relevance to this discussion in the operating portion is because the ask is for council to consider asking administration to add a position essentially for a 50% grant writer and a 50% community services support, so that we can maintain the two people in economic development that council has put there essentially.
Anything else in the operational questions, comments?
For now.
Oh, Jen.
Sorry, Councillor Wright?
I just had a question. Is there anything that's either in the capital or operating budget that addresses the ongoing water issues in Blue Ridge? I know some information is expected to come forward in the next meeting. I just really wanted it on the radar. I know that the residents here have just recently started a petition regarding the fees that are charged on their water bills and the tanning concerns. They were told that the water quality has improved, and we haven't heard from any of the residents that it has, so.
Jeff could speak to it.
Mr. Zhang?
Through the chair to Councillor Wright. In the operating budget, there is no further improvement to the water treatment plant at this time, because we funded the activated carbon replacement out of this year's operating budget. That work has already been completed. We do need about 3-4 weeks after the replacement to let the water to clear up itself. That's the phase we're currently in. I checked, the last time I checked was actually this morning. I spoke to my manager of environmental services, and he assured me the testing results came back at level 5, which is below level 6, which is apparent. So any color that's over 6 means you can see a color. Anything lower than 6 means your human eyes cannot detect the color. We're currently at 5, which means human eyes couldn't detect the color that's coming out of the filters. As I said, it does require time to just let the system to clear itself. So that's the update I can provide. Hopefully that answers your question.
Sorry, the only follow-up that I was just wondering is, at what time frame was this implemented, just so that I can give kind of a date for people to follow up that 3 to 4 week time frame?
through the chair to Councillor Wright, the replacement took about 3 weeks, so I would say completed around the first week of December. And I would place the 3 to 4 weeks ending around the new year.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
Councillor St. Martin?
Just a question on that, the tannin issue. I understand that tannin doesn't result in a sediment in the water lines, but it can result in a sludging of the water lines. Can that be, is there any plans to clean those water lines and desludge that from the water system?
So the chair to Councillor St. Martin, we have had a consultant come out to do testing from Calgary before we implement this activated carbon replacement. This is one of the reasons why it took a little bit longer to even get to this state. Their report suggests the tannin issue in the effluent of the water, it's caused by our filters. Because once they have taken the filters offline and just monitor the water color after our sand filters, the water quality meets all the requirements. So it's not necessarily a issue with the water line from the testing results. So we do believe after the activated carbon replacement and wait for the water to clear, we should be able to address this issue.
Thank you.
Mr. Ferris?
The numbers for growth, it's based on a per capita. We don't have the number for 2026, but for 2025 it was $7,600. I thought it was higher than that, but it was $7,610 in 2025.
That's the application fee, and then on top of that, we had our EDO spent a bunch of time into it too, so that there is administrative times on top of that.
Significant.
And I believe we're one of 2 municipalities now in the growth after the dispersal of Mayerthorpe. Anything else on the operational end? Councillor McNeil?
Just a clarification and to kind of wrap up, would we, would council consider a motion for the position that I mentioned? Is that something that we would bring forward to discussion at December 18th? What would be the process, or what's the appetite of council?
I would need to see the impact on the budget, because there is gonna be increases in the salaries, and that money from what we have budgeted currently is gonna have to come from somewhere to be able to fill it. CAO Ferris?
Quite honestly, if this is a priority within council, Mr. Orwo and I had some discussions here where we can sharpen our pencil on some locations within this budget and find the funding, not only with the removal of growth and some of the other comments we've heard here today, but without a concern, I could find the money for this position, and I could tell you exactly where it's cut by next Friday, for clarity, if it was something if it interested you.
Councillor McNeil?
One of the comments and suggestions that I would have in regard to that, and also looking at capacity, is I'd ask council to consider the ambassador program and potentially pausing or taking the ambassador program out for 2026. I think, and when we discussed this at the Economic Development Committee as well, we didn't have necessarily the same view on it that administration did, its level of success. And currently, it also puts an administrative burden for that program onto community services, economic development, had that burden last year. So with that program being in the budget for 44,000, I think that would be much better spent towards the grant writer or the community services support.
I want to speak in support of that program, because lots of residents that I spoke to weren't aware of a lot of what we did around the municipality, and that program being out there opened their eyes to a lot of what we could do. I believe that it's great having, especially the younger people out there. I think they brought, especially in some of our posts and our programs that they attended, I think it was very well received by the public and by residents and by the ratepayers, especially the information they were able to provide that typically our other staff either didn't have the capacity or time for, or again, we were looking for other individuals and time outside of their other workday to fill. So I think it's, if we cut the program, it's gonna be more onerous on other staff members to fill some of those, given that we had these part-time summer students for, so. Councillor McNeil?
Okay, I can follow up to that in that one of the asks for the program and the way that it was presented to the Economic Development Committee is economic development had been pushing for social media presence. And that's something that there was a concerted effort for 2 years to push their social media presence. And that was one of administration come back with this ambassador program was part of the answer to that. In addition to collecting survey results and so on going forward. So that was the focus of the ambassador program last year, was those two purposes. And what's changed since then is number one, now we have a communications coordinator who's been doing a fantastic job on social media. We've been getting a lot more presence on our social media than what we had in the past. And with the ambassador program, to put it in perspective, when I looked through the numbers on, I believe it was presented to our committee, it was approximately $80,000. It was a 3-month project. And with one of the main focuses supposed to be this increasing the social media presence, in 12 weeks across 4 staff, they got 61 followers on Instagram and they made a total of 121 posts. And I got calls from residents asking, where's this money going? Why are we paying, to have this happen? So yes, I agree. One of the benefits of the program was 100% highlighting some of the areas in the region, and that was a definite benefit. I think the young people that took part in the program themselves did a great job. We had great feedback about the participants themselves, but financially, this is a program that $80,000, the limited number of surveys that we got, I don't have the number, but when it came back to the committee, it really wasn't a lot of surveys. And it would have been cheaper for us to pay every resident $10 to fill out those surveys or whatever it was. So I certainly didn't see it as the success for those 2 metrics that we were told the program was for.
Councillor Dean and Mr. Ferris.
Through the chair to council and administration, and specifically to Councillor McNeil, would you be comfortable with a motion to direct administration to revise the operating budget to incorporate a full-time position and examine the cost benefits of the summer ambassador program?
Yes, please. Yeah, that would be great.
So I think I just made a motion.
Okay, there's a motion. Speaking to the motion? Anybody online, see any? And so it's to review the full-time position or to implement a full-time position?
To implement a full-time position, to revise the budget to incorporate a full-time position for ACTEV, and to examine the cost benefits of the summer ambassador program.
Yeah, I'm just not comfortable with adding a full-time, and for myself, position until I see where the cuts have to come out of to implement their wages.
Well, that's what the motion says. Is asking that our CAO has indicated that he can sharpen his pencil and come up with the money.
Councillor McNeil and then CAO Ferris.
Through the chair to Councillor Dean, I'd ask just to make a friendly amendment. In your motion, you mentioned a full-time position for ECDEV. Currently on the books, we do have a full-time position for ECDEV. So I'm just wanted to clarify, would the friendly amendment be a full-time position for community services?
Pardon
What's
me,
the wording?
Right, your full-time position you were requesting was split between community services and the grant writer?
Yes.
Right, pardon me. So yeah, I'd accept that friendly amendment.
Okay, thank you.
CEO Ferris?
Just recognizing the lack of consensus at the moment on it. If you would like to task me to bring that business case for that person, on the 18th, that is also a possibility for council. Recognizing that there will be cuts elsewhere and you may not necessarily agree with where those are proposed. Just as a possible option for council, just to bring it up.
Councillor Dean?
Yeah, so just for clarity, the intent of my motion is to bring back a plan for review, right? The budget that is gonna be presented on the 18th based on this recommendation can still be changed, right?
Yes, okay.
So I think we're saying the same thing.
Okay, any other discussion to the motion? Councillor St. Martin?
Mr. Reeve, through to council and administration, can we look at a scenario where maybe it's a half-time position, like the costs versus a full-time, so that we have that information?
Sorry, just if I can get further clarification through council. The discussion item was 50% grant, 50% community services as either one person as or individually. So you'd like an analysis of just a half-time person doing both of these things, or two half-time people doing one thing individually as well as one person doing it all? Is that the analysis that council would like?
Mr. Reeve, through to CEO Ferris, it was a half-time, and I'm assuming this is administrative position, administrative support. A half-time that would look at those two functions?
Independent.
No, I'm sorry, just to clarify. So we were looking at a full-time position, looking at those two functions.
Perfect.
So I'm saying a half-time position looking at those two functions.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Councillor Dean?
So for
Friendly
clarification, you're asking the motion to be amended to include a comparison of a full-time split between the two functions and a half-time split between the two functions.
Correct.
Okay. So maybe we need to make a new motion. Unless we've got that recorded.
Through the chair, we have it recorded, but I think we might wanna clarify the motion.
Sure, okay, so I would move that council directs administration to do a cost analysis between a half and a full-time position that would be split between two functions, one function being grant writing and the other function being community services admin.
Councillor, new motion on the floor. Any discussion on that motion? Not seeing any, call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Right, any further discussion on the operational budget? Not seeing any. Take a 10-minute break. Or this is 11:02 here, so an 8-minute break. Come back at 10 after 11. And we'll start on the capital side.
Should I just ask a housekeeping question, if we're break, the motion that's gonna come out in 3.1, it's gonna cover both operating and
Reading, I believe it's operating in.
okay.
Okay, just let us know when we're off. It is back,
Did we lose Benny?
and Benny isn't joining us after he got stuff freezing up, so. Okay, I guess we're ready to move on to the capital side. Mr. Ferris?
Sorry, just as we go into the capital side, recognizing the additional note there regarding wildland fire unit, and the add-on to that. We did get some quotes, just as part of these discussions, just with the problems we've been having with it. It was a increase, it was a bump up in the capital budget, but we did wanna make sure that replacement is always the best option if there are no other options. We have gotten a quote for approximately $22,500 to do repairs on it, as an alternative to the potential $220,000 cost. So it is a significant alternative. Both options should be able to be discussed with council, but I just wanted to note that, well, the item before you is $220,000 to bring it forward to 2026. As of 10 a.m. this morning, we got the quote that said there's an option of $22,500 to fix it, which, depending on our refined policies, may be capitalized for the $22,000 as well.
Thank you. I guess Mr. Zhang, are you leading us off here in the capital plan? Or Mr. Orwa?
Sure, Mr. Orwa will lead us off and I'll jump in as needed, thank you.
Well, actually, all I can say is what you see on the board, council, is what we saw last time. The only addition to I've highlighted in yellow, and that is exactly what the CEO has talked about. That fire truck. Originally, we had put in a deposit of 22,000 in 2026 and 198,000 in 2027. Yeah, the one highlighted in yellow, but now we brought it back a total of 220. So that is the only new change to what you saw last time. Unless there's any discussion or any movement or any addition from council. Thank you.
Discussion on the capital side, council?
Did you want to bring the surplus applied?
Councilor St. Martin?
Mr. Reeve through to administration. On the 2025 capital projects, do we have a potential surplus? And I'm thinking on the paving projects for East and West Mountain Road, specifically, where those funds could go towards the slide and free up some funds for other capital.
Through the chair to Councilor St. Martin, yes, all of our completed or finalized capital projects have came in at or under budget. The exact dollar amounts won't be finalized until probably the end of January. I know if we relied on Mr. Zhang, he could probably give some high level rough numbers, but I will preface that with the fact that we are still receiving bills from contractors, and some contractors don't need the money immediately and are a little bit delayed with their billing. And so once we have that number, we can provide an exact number, so any references Mr. Zhang gives are approximates.
If I can, just as a follow-up to that, I know council was anticipating a savings from the projects this year. Did we utilize any of that money for some of our unbudgeted expenses that came up to offset those costs as well, and some of the equipment purchases or things we were looking at? I do believe we had a discussion on though, but I'm just not sure if we moved money out of that yet.
I would have to rely on Mr. Orwell on how much we're transferring.
No movement yet, but it's gonna be done.
That's not factored into this budget before.
Mr. Zhang?
Your worship, to answer the question on the savings specifically related to the paving jobs on East Mountain and West Mountain, that project this year, we're forecasting with a $900,000 saving, and that's the result of a tender after the province's major project. The one piece of information I want to just highlight is the funding was debentured, so it's actually best to reuse on the same project anyway.
So Mr. Reeve, through to CEO Ferris, can that debentured portion be brought into the 2026 for the East Mountain Slide repair?
Through the chair, I'd have to look at the terms of the debenture to make sure that it's coverable within that scope. If it is, I would have no objections to incorporating that in if that was desirable by council.
Any other questions, comments?
So Mr.
Same
Reeve,
art.
through to CEO Ferris, if we did that, does that now free up potentially
Correct.
$900,000?
Yes.
Okay. So Mr. Reeve, through to CEO Ferris, that being said, would we know more information about that when this comes forward on the last council meeting of 2025?
We can review, through the chair, we can review all the debenture requirements between then and now and provide it as part of your package on the 18th.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else to administration and capital? Councilor Beal, and then Councilor Dean.
Councillor Dean, go first.
Sorry, didn't see your hand up first there. Councilor Dean.
Through the chair to administration, when we get that information back on the rules around the debenture, would we then have an opportunity at that December 18th meeting to potentially reallocate savings towards other projects?
In theory, through the chair, depending on the scope of the debenture and what was included, yes. Administratively, not only recognizing the time availability between then and now, but there have been multiple budget meetings currently on capital. The agenda item coming before you will most likely be restricted to how we can use the debentured money in 2026 with a project that is already identified for 2026. In theory, you could pick a project from 27, 28, or 29 and bring it forward and utilize that 900,000, but without re-verifying those numbers and everything in the 1 week time frame. My recommendation and analysis will be strictly in relation to 2026 projects unless council identifies otherwise today.
Okay, and so just to follow up, because we're up against a hard date timeline, what I think I'm hearing you say is prior to us establishing our tax bylaw, in those intervening months, we'd have opportunity then to look at reallocation of those funds to either a 26 project or potentially a 27 or even a 28 project, bringing it forward.
Through the chair, yes, but just for clarity, how I foresee the item being tweaked for next Thursday, it will be these $900,000 can be allocated for these projects. Our recommendation to minimize overall budget impacts for 2026 is to use it from a project in 2026. However, it is entirely council's prerogative to reprioritize.
Okay. And specifically, what I'm looking at is that, and I know I brought this up at a previous meeting, we had set an expectation, I'll use that word, for council and for residents to follow through with the cold mix rehab program. And we have cold mix rehab occurring in 2026. It's on commuter road, so that was identified by the infrastructure department as a real need area, and anybody that's driven those roads would understand that it is a very need area. What's missing is any subdivisions, and so in 2027, we're forecasting spending $721,000. What I'm asking is there potential to move some of the projects that are contained within that $721,000 expense into 26 and use those funds that will be freed up?
Through the chair, if that's council's desire to incorporate that analysis in, I have no objections doing it. I would just like that direction from council because it will be added work, recognizing the numbers for 2027 aren't as detailed and re-reviewed as 2026. But if that's something you'd like to add on today that we incorporate with that debenture analysis, we can have it done for next Thursday.
Can we defer it so that it spreads the workload, like accept a budget as presented with the provision that there may be freed up money that we look at in Q1, and then you don't task staff with doing that analysis right now? Okay.
I had Councillor McNeil and Councillor.
Through the chair to council, this was also on my radar, the discussion around the cold mix, and from what I understand, and it's more of a question probably for the council that was here prior, the way it was explained to me is that there was approximately $550,000 budgeted each year to continue with that program, like you had mentioned. And one of the concerns that I have with this is restoring the level of service to the areas that had cold mix prior. So we still have areas in the county that had cold mix prior to financial recovery. During that recovery process, the cold mix was tore up and not replaced. So we have residents who purchased their homes on a paved road, you know, and I would like to see priority put to restoring the level of service to some of those places first.
The administration does have a list of prioritized areas that they presented to council and a worksheet as far as which roads they were doing based off of I guess not survey, but condition reports on the roads. So that there is a report out there based off of which roads by condition and traffic.
Just as a quick follow-up, when I did see the report, but what I didn't see in that report was whether that particular road did have a cold mix surface in the past or not. So I just didn't have that reference.
Mr. Zhang?
Through the chair to Councillor McNeil, just to elaborate on that. If you look at the Comix Road condition map that's posted on county website, that was posted summer this year, you would note the names of the roads. Some of them has an asterisk beside it. And that denotes those roads were previously partially or fully powerized.
Okay,
So
thank you.
you'd be able to find that information. Secondly, to your first point, in the 2025 capital budget that was approved last year in December, those previously powerized roads were also on the program. They were in the later years. The thought behind that was the deterioration on existing roads that still has this oil surface on is more pressing compared with the one that we already powerized and removed it. The reason behind that is when you still have an oil surface on and when you have potholes after potholes, it's a traffic safety hazard. Whereas if it's a previously powerized road, we are able to quickly, it's not that different than another gravel road because it's already powerized surface and we just use our grader to grade it. There's not that urgency of public safety. That's why some of those roads were in the later years, but they were part of the whole program already.
Thank you for the context.
Counselor St. Martin?
Mr. Reeve through to CAO Ferris. Would it be better to look at it from a transfer from reserve on the thought process that if there is a surplus on these projects, it'll be transferred back into that reserve? Is that a easier way to deal with it?
Yeah, through the chair, we can absolutely do that as well. Because we do have our reserve stabilization, we also have our capital reserves that by default, according to policy, this money would flow into naturally. And so, yeah, that is definitely an easier route for sure.
Follow up?
Mr. Reeve, further to that, cold mix roads, absolutely. There's one other item that I would like council to really consider, is the emergency generator for this office. If we have a disaster, this office, it can't function if it has loss of power. It'll have no water, no sewer, and none of, and we're expecting our emergency operations center to operate out of this building. So I think that's also an emergent project that warrants consideration.
Counselor Dean and Counselor Coogan.
Yeah, thank you, my questions were answered.
Counselor Coogan?
Yeah, I just, through to administration, I again asked the question that on Carlson Drive, there was $300,000 that were allocated in the 5-year capital plan there in 2028. I think that we went through the public engagement session and there's a certain expectation that at least some of the flooding problems that are there would be addressed, and I'm not seeing that here. And I know that the infrastructure manager did have a phased-in approach or a look at that, what can be done there in the short term, because it's not a $300,000 project, it's a $1 million plus project, so I understand that. But I don't see anything in here that would address anything that was done there. So is there an explanation for that? Because we did go through the engagement session and we did have a consultant look at what's possibly needs to be done there.
Through CAO Ferris?
Rely on Jeff for that.
Your worship to Councillor Koken, the intent is still the same as 2 weeks ago. I still don't have a design in my hand. I do have a line that's called culvert replacement routine, and based on the preliminary design I have seen, majority of the more urgent work, they are very much culvert related. So I do intend when the design is ready, and there will be some notes left for the staff to stage them, is to utilize the funding in this line that's called culvert replacement routine, as well as we also have operating budgets that we tap into for culvert replacement that does not meet the capitalization limits. We also have programs such as ditching, brushing, that we tap into for a different scope of the work. So while it does not show a specific dollar amount in 2026 for Carlson Drive, it's not a forgotten project. It's there. It's being or it will be programmed in multiple programs.
Thanks for that, Jeff.
Counselor St. Martin?
Just for clarification on that, on the generator for this office, I'm thinking it's a $200,000 generator
Plus the electrical, yes.
plus electric.
So inclusive of the electrical,
Okay.
yeah, total $200,000 project to the chair, sorry.
Okay.
I think.
Counselor Dean?
So through the chair to admin, can you help me understand how, like, when would the project be done? Is for the generator?
I may, the reason it looks like a 5-year project is historically we've been unsuccessfully able to advocate to council to keep this as a project. First thought process was if we were to budget $40,000 this year, we could at least get the electrical done so that if there was an emergency, we could rent an appropriate generator so operations can continue. The idea, similarly, you'll note in the airport budget is if we can't pay for it all at once, fine, let's budget for the cost, we will save that money and then eventually hopefully have the cost. So it was just a strategy because we recognize it as a priority. If you're not willing to allocate it all in 1 year, we're saying we need to allocate it over 5 because we need it.
Thank you.
Council? Anything else? Councilor Wright, you've been kind of quiet up there. Anything on the capital side?
Through the chair, no, nothing that I've noticed yet.
Anything else from council? So, Council Dean?
So I'd be prepared to make a motion, but I just need a little help on how to structure that motion with respect to the savings and how they may be allocated, given the fact that we don't wanna task administration with doing that work before Christmas.
If I may, through the chair, if my interpretation is correct, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you would like to utilize any surpluses that we have, particularly in relation to our capital projects, and either allocate it to proposed projects in 2026 or with a reserve transfer once the numbers are finalized. If that's the case, I don't believe it's necessary for a motion at this time because January, we will be doing our year-end quarterly report. We should have much better numbers on final numbers. They won't be final because our meeting is not January 31st, so there will still be a little room for error there. And part of that with our quarterly budget updates and that sort of thing will include a capital breakdown with those costs. At that point, you will know a number that you can allocate with the budget between January and April. So I don't believe necessarily if you need that information, it's coming to you. We're just a month early, so I don't believe it actually needs a motion.
Okay.
Quite honestly.
So we just need to go with the recommended action then.
Just take Councilor St. Martin's question before we make a motion. Would you, if that's amenable to you, Councilor Dean?
Yeah.
Councilor St. Martin?
Mr. Reeve through to CEO Ferris. So there's some funding from operations into the capital as well. So maybe we could use a little bit of that. I don't know what you've allocated to what, but if it frees up the operating funding, will it go back into the operating budget to maybe offset some of the additional asks?
Hopefully, yes.
And I would like to know through the chair to the council, how you feel about the 5% overall increase? Like, would we like, if there's some of that operating funding going back into operations, would we like that reduced to maybe 2.5?
Councilor McNeil?
Through the chair to Councillor St. Martin, in regards to this discussion, most certainly, I mean, obviously, nobody wants an increase, but when it comes to discussing an increase, I think that it should be more tied to a verifiable number, whether, you know, with the current inflationary numbers. So, which would be more in the line from what I understand about 2.4 or 2.5, like what you had mentioned, rather than just a straight 5 across the board. So it's certainly above inflation.
Councilor St. Martin?
Mr. Chair, through to administration, are we projecting or anticipating an increase in assessment that would offset that 5%? Because if that's the case, then the 2.5 isn't as
Every indication that we've received to date indicates an assessment increase. So it's not straight across the board 5% tax increase. That being said, if people's homes are worth more, the tax rate does change even if the rate stays the same. But there will be a portion of that will be mitigated by the assessment increases, yes.
And when we see those numbers though, we also have the opportunity, like we've done in the past, if it was a 3% or 5% increase, at least, you know, sticking to that as an average, we can reduce the tax rate to offset the inflation there we need to make sure that we're still at that percentage that we want. Councillor Dean?
Yeah, just, so effectively, what administration's looking for is a 5% increase in revenues. But we can play with the factors that go into that. I did have a question of clarification before I made this motion though. Do you need we made a motion asking admin to come back with an analysis based on adding a half-time position and a full-time position to the operating budget. Does that need to be incorporated in this motion, or does that previous motion capture it?
Through the chair, that previous motion deals with that and it will be brought back next Thursday.
Good to go?
Yeah, just to the comment then on the tax rate, do we want a comparative of 2.5% and a 5%? Just to see what that impact looks like, at least dollar wise?
On an individual tax note should.
Well, I'm just even overall in the budget, just for an idea, if it comes back and it's a couple $100,000 difference, we at least have the idea, you know, I'm sure we can figure out that there's gonna be some change, and obviously you have your reports coming back to us here later in the year that kind of show some of the, you know, our savings and how that'll allocate, and we can, you know, work those out later, but maybe just as a overall comparative on the number. For just the total bottom line.
I'll be honest, I believe Mr. Orwell can tell you what those implications are right now. If we take our current revenue for 2025 and what's a 2.5% revenue increase. If you just take us a couple of minutes, not,
Okay.
I'm gonna say right now, sorry, if you give us.
I'm trying to at least get an idea, understanding what that might look like, and understanding that there are savings coming that can kind of offset some of that on the operational side without having to, you know, impact the budget for what's being presented.
While you're
Potentially.
while we're operating side, something's just clicked again, that I want to make sure that I mention it, that is going to have an impact on our budget as well on the operation side. And this is normally a discussion that we have with the auditors first, and I did have one with them just the other day. And that is on the AROs, that is the asset retirement obligation. So we do have, some, aspects of retirement in the future in areas like I think the landfill, the lagoons and all those things. So what that means is we build up that liability for the future, but the expense has to hit every year for us to build that whatever. So accretion expense is, I would just say, is that's a periodic increase in the carrying value of that liability. And I think I'll maintain it at the same level. Last year, 2025, it was 280,000. So we will maintain again that one in 2026. I forgot to mention that one from the operating side because that I don't want to surprise you on the 18th. Sorry, I'm almost getting there.
Mr. Chair, through to CEO Ferris, in 2026, I would put to council as well, or if you can advise, has there been a cell phone review done in recent years?
Absolutely. Through the chair, we've conducted that review over the last 6 months.
Okay.
We are in the process of switching currently to TELUS RMA. And then we actually subsequently to that, played the carriers against each other and got a better deal from another provider. However, that provider has not had we've never used them, so we're concerned about coverage areas. So we're in talks about doing a pilot study for 10 to 15 phones with that provider at the lower rate, to see if it will cover our full service area. We know with our current provider, it's working, and we're now getting the better rate through Canoe, and through the RMA TELUS program. But we've also, we did the analysis with the provincial plan, and then we found this other plan when we were negotiating with the provider. So it was reviewed this year, but we, as part of continuous improvement, we're trying to find what is the best, and we have this other opportunity that we're, as I indicated, investigating as a pilot as well.
So Mr. Reeve, that may result in savings in 2026?
So the savings for our cell phone organizational wide has already been implemented into the budget. It's a 2026 rollout. The trial costs are in there as well. It is a net savings organizational wide for 2026 for cell phones.
Councilor Martin.
Through the Reeve to CAO Ferris, has the organization completed a insurance portfolio review?
Not at this time, but it is on our radar.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. We can probably make the motion while Mr. Orr was just getting his numbers here too, if we're.
Sure. So I'd move the council direct administration to present the 2026 interim operating budget and the 2026 capital budget, along with the 5-year capital plan at the December 18th, 2025 council meeting for council's approval.
Thank you, Councilor. Discussion on the motion. Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that is carried. Just wonder we close there, Mr. Orwa?
If it pleases the chair, we have no problem sending that to you all in an email. Your time is valuable, and unless he has it currently, we can do that as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. CEO, for that clarification. I just want to make sure that everything is right, and I want to break it down by categories so that you see line by line. So that should be sent across here pretty quick before the end of the day.
Thank you very much for that clarification, Mr. Orwa. Councilor McNeil?
Just before making the motion to adjourn, I just wanted to take a moment through the Reeve and, with council to extend, thanks to Jeff, and with it being his last day here, one of the things I really sincerely wanted to say how much I appreciate the work that you've done in your time here, and I really see how much better you were leaving the position than you found it. And hearing from the staff, at events and even in some of our meetings in the room and so on, it's very apparent the level of respect that your staff have for you. And really wanted to wish you well and thank you for your work here.
It wouldn't hurt our feelings if you moonlighted for about 8 hours an evening after your other jobs. With that, if I can get a motion for adjournment, Councilor McNeil.
I'll make the motion that we adjourn the special council meeting at 11:48.
Thank you, Councilor. Discussion for the motion, call the question, all in favor? And we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody, and thank you again, Jeff, for everything you provided for us here.
I did.
That's okay.